Look at John Deere financing.
Okay, let's get started. It's good evening. It's now 7 o'clock on Tuesday, March 11th, 2025, and I'm calling this meeting of the Chelmsford Conservation Commission to order. My name is Carl Bischoff. I'm the chair of the commission, and we'll be following the published and posted agenda for the most part. This meeting is both in person and through Zoom. In the case of the Zoom not working properly, we will continue the meeting in person only. This meeting is being broadcast and recorded by Chelmsford Telemedia and will be available on their website and on YouTube. And we do have a quorum here, so we are good to go. So first thing on our agenda is we ask if there are any comments from the public, any public input concerns relating to issues within the jurisdiction of the commission but are not on the current agenda or subject to a pending public hearing. Anything? Nobody on the Zoom raising their hands, David? Okay. So the first thing, there's a couple of things. Peter, you want to mention what you said about those two boxes you have next to your?
Yeah, so I had a lovely experience last Friday. The commission was invited to speak with a Girl Scout troop. And I apologize if anyone from the troop is listening, but I did not write down the troop number. It's run by K.C. Piscotti. And there were a dozen, 10, 11, 12-year-old young ladies very interested in what the town is doing to help animals. And it turned out they had just recently had a presentation by Jane Newhouse. So, they were talking about, coagulation and rodenticides and a bunch of other interesting things. So I did suggest they could consider a joint project with our commission to do something like a YouTube video about some topic they were interested in, or make a poster we could put perhaps at the kiosk or something. And I did that partly because I think it's good to do, and partly because one of our action items in town plans is to do community outreach, and this was fun. So they gave us Girl Scout cookies.
Bribe.
And I apologize to the audience because there was a request to keep the Thin Mints here.
Oh.
So you might want to see if there's some left over once it gets around the table.
That wasn't me.
And do you want to start? And anyway, thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Peter. It's good to see. So, Chris, you and I were at the MACC, this is the Massachusetts Association of Conservation Commissioners, annual conference a week ago, Saturday, and I have a couple of things to say, but why don't you just give a short update of what you took away from that?
Yeah, I mean, the conference was excellent. Gregor McGregor was given a lifetime award. He's been 50 years as legal counsel for the MACC, and they gave him a nice award. So it was nice to see Attorney McGregor get that recognition. I actually attended he did an afternoon session on the legal developments, and that was really good. And then I attended the sessions that were led by our Northeast Circuit Rider, who really spent time on the regs and kind of common questions that commissioners have to come up. And I know, David, you work with Alicia a lot, too. So
Yes.
She was really good. So in one of the sessions, and I'm going to scan the document and send it out to everybody, but there was a 20-question exam, multiple choice, exam on how well we know the regs that we administer. And so I'll scan that document and send it out to everybody here. You can self-test yourselves on it. You don't have to tell you how you're doing the score. But and I've got a key for it, so I can send that out to you so you can correct your own exams. Yeah, Carl says afterwards. But honestly, it was time well spent. It was also interesting seeing the diversity of where towns are, because some of the towns don't have an agent, or they don't have a full-time agent like we do. There are towns out there that have to do, really everything on their own.
The commission does.
The commission does, yeah. The commission's out there volunteering, doing everything. So we're really lucky to have our agent here and the support that we've got, and Vivian doing our minutes for us and everything. So that was a good session. It was time well spent.
On the other hand, there are towns that have departments, too.
There are towns, on the other end of the spectrum, there are those that have, an agent, and the agent's got a couple of assistants.
A director.
And, yeah. There's, we're kind of like, I would say we're kind of in the middle, maybe, in the middle.
No, I agree with you. It was really time well spent. It's a full day of events. I attended that same keynote speaker. That was good. I attended one on the biodiversity goals of the state, which is a new executive order from a couple of years ago. That was quite interesting. I also, watch out, I got the ABCs of issuing tickets to wetland violators. So, so just like traffic tickets, we can issue wetland violator tickets. So I learned how to do that. And then there was one on creative solutions for improving wildlife habitat functions, and that was quite good. And linking to something later on in our agenda, lighting came up more than once in these presentations. You know, natural, you know, lighting and how we do lighting in our towns. So we're going to talk about that later. So that was good. The other thing, Peter and I have recently attended two sessions. One was Bay State Roads, which is the state version of DPW, presented a training on invasive management training last week here in Chelmsford at the Alpha Road DPW facility. And we attended with a number of our DPW colleagues and people from other towns around the state, handful of towns around the state. There's about 30 people in the room, and it was quite good. They talked about the identification of common invasive plants, the best management practices, and also invasive pests, which was interesting. I don't know a whole lot about the invasive pests. And then this afternoon, Peter and I attended a SISMA meeting, which is the Coalition of Invasive Species Management, I think it is, for,
Sudbury Valley Trust
yeah.
driven.
So that was a good session, but that was focused on lakes and ponds and aquatic invasives, and that was a good session. Similar in a way in that it was talking about identification and then best management practices.
And I was there.
Oh, I'm sorry, David was there on Zoom. Peter and I were there in person, and David was there on Zoom, yeah, yeah.
And if I could just add for benefit of our audience, the invasive tree, or the tree and invasive workshop at DPW was particularly timely because our tree warden, who's Christine Clancy, DPW director, has funding to do tree inventory and invasive inventory and management plan, kind of focused on roads, since DPW, focuses on roads. So the timing was really good, and I think that study, which we'll talk about it more another day, we hope that there's enough funding to get a little bit of consultant help to build on the work this commission has done, through you and Carl and David, at Warren Poll, kind of the beginning of looking at, stuff that's growing there and what might take over if we don't do something. So it's good stuff.
Yeah, a lot going on. Okay, Planning Board Liaison. Hello, Chris, good evening.
Good evening. So last meeting, we had quite a long meeting with a lot on the agenda. We approved Palet Drive project with some special conditions. We continued the Kate's Corner zoning discussion, which will continue again this week. We voted to recommend the floodplain bylaw changes, the minor zoning changes, also the lighting bylaw with some reservations. And that discussion is coming back around this week with some proposed changes from Kelly Beatty. And we also discussed and voted to support the 129 overlay changes, also with some reservations. This week, as I mentioned, we're potentially reconsidering the vote on the bylaw for lighting changes based on Kelly's updates. And then we're going to be discussing one-stop grant submission to help determine market changes that will impact potentially our zoning. And we've got one new public hearing, no continued public hearings, which is quite surprising. And that one new public hearing will be pretty short. It's related to Drumhill store that will change uses and potentially parking changes as well. That's about it.
Okay, any questions?
No.
Thanks.
Okay,
Thank
thanks.
you, Chris. Okay. Let's get into the regulatory session here. Okay, so next up is 10 Hildreth Street. This is continued from, okay, so the last we talked was January 14th. At that meeting, I did a little research on this. So we opened this hearing September 12th, 2023. Since January of a year ago, there have been 14 or 15 continuances, 8 active hearings or so, I'm not sure my counting, on this application, and only 3 hearings since July of 2024. So as much as we feel this has been going on a long time, in time-wise it has, but in the last 7 or 8 months, we've only had 3 hearings. So it's kind of interesting when you look at it that way. That being said, that the last hearing, the discussion was focused on David's discussions with the natural heritage people about the vernal pools and whether or not they had been aware of the vernal pools and the prior disturbance, which David reported that they were aware of this when they made their decision. And also there was a request for a chain link fence around the habitat area, which would protect the turtles from moving into the developed area and being dangerous for the turtles. And we had some discussion on special conditions. So the main thing we were looking for was chain link fence. That was what I have from my notes as a outcome from our previous meeting. So Brian, if you want to come up and take over from here for the moment. David, did I miss anything?
Well, we'd also talked about possibly hiring a peer reviewer for the natural heritage
Yes.
decision, but
Yes.
Thank you. For the record, Brian Goodrow with Hancock Associates. So thank you to the commission for your patience. A year and a half is a long time, but as you broke it down, we have been somewhat productive. The number one kind of issue, as you indicated, was the swap or the requested swap from split rail to chain link fence. And what we have done since the January hearing is we reached out to Natural Heritage and had a conversation with them to see if it would be acceptable. Initially, when we had talked with Natural Heritage, we had kind of assumed it was going to be chain link. Split rail was put out there as an option, and they wanted the split rail fence. Now, based on our discussions with them, they are willing to accept a chain link fence, and we have revised the plans to show a 5-foot chain link fence. They also requested that we propose one-way turtle gates. So there are 2 turtle gates called out in plan view. I'll just point them out quickly. One is here, the turtle habitat and nesting areas in this, so we felt that this would be a good place for a one-way gate. And then additionally, before Hildreth roadway, there's another turtle gate being proposed, and that's really just to allow them to get through the fencing before they go around the fence, if you will, and potentially enter the roadway. Now, one-way turtle gates is basically a 4-foot section of the fence. The chain link is elevated by a foot above what is grade, and a 24-inch pipe is buried at the spring line. So half of the pipe is in the ground and half of the pipe projects above the ground. So on the conservation side, or the undeveloped portion, that's going to be where the pipe is exposed, so the turtles can't physically crawl up the pipe and make their way through the opening. On the project side of it, the grade is elevated to the crown of the pipe, so all you would see on the project side is grass, and then an opening within the chain link fence, so turtles can go through the fence and kind of slide down the pipe. So it will allow turtles to leave but not enter the project site. So again, we've assented to that. We've revised the plans to show those. Natural Heritage is on board with that plan.
and Brian, there's also I forget the height. There's wire mesh cloth
There
along
is.
the bottom of the fence
So-
as well to prevent turtle hatchlings from getting through the chain link fence.
Yep.
So similar to what was done at 93 Brick Hill Road.
And that is also reflected on the detail. Thank you, David.
Okay, so David, that that satisfies what you were looking for.
Yeah,
What
yeah,
we-
so
we
that
were-
was-
We were looking for that.
Yeah, so to me, that was really the only remaining issue with, as far as the design and the plan goes. So, and now again, in my opinion, it's just a matter of, working out the order of conditions. And I did have I have had some discussions with Brian about those, and in some detail. So I think it's fair to say that, you're okay, and I assume your client's okay with, what we've discussed.
Yeah, so David and I met yesterday and kind of talked through the 4 potential conditions, one of them being the fence that we revised the plan on, second being monitoring, third being extending the restriction onto Lot 4 for areas kind of within that 100-foot buffer, and the fourth one is restoration of the buffer plan to be submitted.
Well, there was also a requirement for the turtle protection plan.
Correct.
The nesting management area, construction sequence.
Yep.
And yeah, the long-term monitoring.
Yep.
So-
And those would be mirrored by natural heritage, so we have to do those regardless, but this would be
So-
us.
So, Brian from 93 Brick Hill Road, and maybe some other projects as well, as far as I know, is already, familiar with, the plans and the monitoring. I don't think we need to keep the hearing open. I think that that requirement can be put in as conditions, because as he mentioned, that at least a couple of them need to be submitted to natural heritage as well.
So before we go there, I still have a couple of questions that you and I have talked about with relative to the other parts of the town. The health department, we talked about that they were still looking for hydrogeologic information, and I'm not clear on the status on that, and I know there was a MCP filed on this property.
Yes. Yes.
I think with the owner, and the status of that is still open. In fact, I don't think there's been any action on that.
As far as I know, and I asked Brian about that, and maybe it's better if you say what you know about it.
Yeah, so I don't have an update on those items for the commission right now.
Okay.
I mean, the letter that DEP sent out was to the owner. Right? I mean, it really told the owner that, the contamination on the property was his responsibility to correct. And I have no idea how, if at all, the applicant is involved with that. So, but I do know, in speaking with Donna, I do know that what she told me was that, before the Board of Health could make a decision on the Title V applications, that they needed to have a new hydrogeological study or an improved hydrogeological study. That's what she told me.
Okay. And our challenge is that while we're charted with our values of protecting water and all of that, our jurisdiction, it's pretty much out of our jurisdiction now, with all of the development being outside of it, and that's our difficulty. That's our challenge. So let me ask any more questions for Brian right at the moment. John, do you have any questions?
How high a fence
5 feet.
for turtles?
Yes. Well,
Am I missing something?
no, it's both. It's both to keep the turtles in and to keep people out. I mean, to
5-foot fence.
Yep. Now I can also tell you, and if you want, I can email you
Oh,
the
don't
video.
email me nothing. You know that.
Oh, right. Sorry.
I have
Sorry.
a flip phone.
But there is. I've seen a video. It was just
Nice.
recently showed me a video of a turtle, a big snapping turtle,
Yeah.
climbing up a 5-foot high chain link fence and getting up and over it.
They're almost the same as a willow tree,
But the turtles?
okay? Snappers are the same as a
Oh,
willow
okay.
tree, okay?
So, yeah.
And this fence is gonna be at the 50-foot?
Here, you see where it's starting here. There's a stone wall
Let me
there that
point
goes up like
Yeah.
that.
So there's an existing stone wall that kind of runs along the property line here and
At the
cuts
power
through-
lines?
At the power lines. We're tying our fence into that stone wall, and then it's gonna go around the limit of work for development to the right of way.
I think it's overkill. That's my opinion.
I
5-foot
yeah.
fence like that is overkill.
I think it's turtle protection 101.
All right,
John, overkill, because it
Let's let-
isn't going to be pretty?
Let's let John talk.
I'm letting
Let's
him
let-
talk.
Yeah.
I think it's overkill, that's my opinion, and I'm sticking with it.
Do you have any more questions?
Nope,
Okay, Bill,
No, I'm good.
you good? Mark?
Nope.
Chris?
No question.
Peter?
Brian and David, the two things that we are talking about with Board of Health, there's actually two things. One is the hydrogeo study and the groundwater protection. And then the other is the approval of the septic system.
And they're related.
Yeah, they're related.
Yes.
So we didn't mention this, is that really what they're saying, is the Board of Health is looking for this additional data
That's what Donna told me.
before
yes.
approving of the septic,
That was my understanding.
to be sure
yes.
we're protecting the water?
Okay. I think that's a fair assumption, yes.
Okay, good, yeah. No questions, Brian?
Okay, so we don't have any more questions. So now we can open it to the public for comment. I know that, I just want to mention that we have recently, it's been a month or so now, we've had letters from, let's see, back on February 3rd, we had a letter from Christy Wood and quite a few others. I won't list the names and I won't read through it, but a nice long letter from Christy Wood, one of the abutters. We had a letter from Ruth Luna on February 25th. And we had a letter, I think it was yesterday, from Christie also. So we do get and appreciate that input, but I'm open to anyone from the public that wants to come up and speak on this permit, on this application. Okay, all right. No public input, okay?
Can I make a motion to close the meeting?
You can make a motion.
Second.
Motion from Mark, second from Bill. All in favor?
Excuse me,
Aye.
motion to close?
To close, yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so the meeting is closed. So I'm going to do something a little different. I am going to ask for a deliberation moment here for each of us to give any commentary, if you wish, on this and what your thoughts are on this before we make a vote. Keep in mind, it is it's a public hearing, so you got to be as factual as you can and less on where you might want this to go, but opinions. So, John, do you have anything you want to add?
I think I said it.
Okay. Bill, do you want to say anything?
I just think that we wanted them to stay out of the 100-foot buffer, which they did. So I think we held to that, and they agreed to it, so I think that was a good way to go. That's it.
Okay. Mark?
Well, that's
thoughts?
pretty much what I'm thinking too. We're out of the jurisdiction. There's nothing else that we're involved in there, other than what the Board of Health wants to do. But that's up to them.
Okay,
Our part is done, I believe.
okay. Chris?
I'm good for now.
Okay. Peter?
Yeah, I have a couple of thoughts, and I'll make this quick. I did a deep dive on our regulations and our bylaws, because I knew Chris was going to give me a test, and I was worried.
I hope you're ready.
Yeah. But I want to just make a couple quick comments from that review. First of all, our regs clearly say we can consider input from other boards. So we need to remember there's a Chelmsford Water District letter floating around. We know the planning board took action. Who else do we need, David? Board of Health is the big question we're talking about. So I think if we're supposed to be considering other boards, it might be good to consider other boards. Leave it at that. Second, in the permit conditions, there is the trailer that was, I think, illegally placed next to River Meadowbrook. But then what I saw when we were out there, it was demolished in place. May not be a Concom thing, but I think that fits the town definition of illegal disposal of solid waste. And we know trailers can have stuff that impact at least 3 of the 8 interests we're here to protect: drinking water quality, avoid pollution, and groundwater quality. So I'd like to see something addressed, and I would assume that would be part of the redevelopment plan, but I haven't actually seen that specifically mentioned. And of course, that does get wrapped into the hazardous waste investigation ordered by DEP, and I assume the health department. So maybe that'll be taken care of, but let's think about that. 2 other quick things. Our regs say that plans need to have drought-resistant trees and shrubs or minimize lawn. I don't remember that one. So we might think about, whether there's a landscaping plan here. All I remember is lots of grass. And then there's one more quick thing. I just want to say this. It may or may not be relevant. Our regs clearly say the applicant has to tell us how their project meets our regulations. And they go on to use the word burden of proof. It's up to the applicant not only to tell us how their project has, they use the word environmental in our regs. It doesn't say buffer, it doesn't say wetland, it says environmental impacts. And they're supposed to tell us how their plan meets our regulations. It's not up to us to play this cat and mouse game we've been playing. Is it a vernal pool, is it not? Our regs say the applicant needs to bring the expertise to tell us what the environmental impacts are. So I want people to think about that. And a final point, I know we keep talking about jurisdiction being, 100-foot buffer. That is not how our regs read. Our regs has something called cumulative effects. And our regs clearly say that we and the applicant need to consider the effects and it's defined in the regs as basically properties nearby. And in this particular case, we know that we're in sensitive areas, wellhead protection zone, natural heritage, the species stuff. This whole watershed is on the new state map of critical watersheds to protect going forward. And the applicant did not mention that word cumulative effects. And our regs clearly say the applicant is supposed to tell us the environmental impacts, including cumulative effects. There is no, and the regs have a word, credible evidence. We can talk about what that means, but we have no credible evidence, except the regs say the opinion of people on this commission, and you, David, is credible evidence. So the question before us is, do we think this thing is impacting more than just where our jurisdiction is? So I'll just say that for things to think about going forward. Sorry, didn't mean that to be a speech. I was
It's okay.
trying to make it short.
Thank you. I knew you had something to say.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
If I may,
David, yeah, sure.
so I think, from the commission's regulatory perspective, I think this is one the commission can feel good about. That everything was gotten out of the buffer zone. That I think the rare species will be protected to the maximum extent practicable, under the statutes and the regulations. The certified vernal pool came out of this, and existing disturbed areas within the buffer zone of the vernal pools will be restored. So I think all of those things put together, I think, things don't usually have this kind of a basically happy ending with a project like this, from my perspective.
I do not disagree, by the way, despite what I said. And in fairness, I should remind everyone, I can't vote.
Yeah,
Actually, maybe I shouldn't have voted to close the hearing.
you didn't.
Uh-oh.
I didn't see your hand.
I didn't say anything. But I want to be clear. It's like, I agree with David. Everyone's worked pretty hard to meet most of the regs, but it's this water pollution and cumulative effects thing I would encourage
Yeah.
us to think about down the road.
And that's where, not to go off the topic at hand, but we want to talk about the gap analysis that's being conducted that we're trying to participate in. And we are also going to have an agenda item, or it's not on the agenda, but we're going to talk a little bit about some changes to our bylaws going forward. And this has made that clear to me that I think we, to give ourselves a little more, that's something we ought to think about, so. All right, then I guess we're at a point where we've had our discussion. I'll take a motion to, so the conditions, that's the question, is the conditions that we've discussed already, and you've had some discussion with Brian, so the special conditions, we think we have a good handle on it. So the question becomes, do we want to vote to accept the conditions as you've described them, or do we want to hold off on that vote? And that's my question to the commission, and maybe you have a suggestion on that, David.
Well,
I know once, we've closed the hearing, so the clock
yes,
started.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm perfectly comfortable going ahead and drafting an order based on the conditions as we've been discussed with members of the commission and with Brian. It's entirely up to you whether you want me to come back with the draft in a couple of weeks and see it. It's entirely up to you. Fine with whatever you decide.
Peter?
Simple question, how are we going to meet our legal responsibility to protect drinking water? There's 3 of the 8. Protect drinking water, protect groundwater, and avoid pollution. How do we meet those 3 legal obligations this commission has without having the results of the contamination study and knowing whether this property is shedding, well, we know it's shedding contamination because it's already been identified. And that's our mission, prevent pollution and protect drinking water. So can we, again, no knowledge of legal precedent here, but can we include that as a permit condition? Clean bill of health from the Haz Waste people at the state and our own Department of Health?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're suggesting, and it was put in a previous order of conditions, is that all applicable permits shall be obtained from local and state agencies. Is that?
That's
I think so.
reasonable.
Yeah, put that in there.
We're talking about the cleanup on the trailer.
We're talking about the,
That was discussed the
no,
first meeting.
no, John, this has been listed by the state as one of the 230 hazardous waste sites in Chelmsford because of contamination found in the early studies. So it's more than the trailer. The property was used for a refrigeration business. Refrigerants are known groundwater contaminants. The property, there's evidence from the neighbors, been told us that they've seen the property owner dumping oil in the ground. That's contamination 101. And there's some third thing going on out
Well,
there.
but specifically, it's now an MCP due to the PFAS contamination.
That's what tripped it.
That's what's been the
6, yeah.
trigger.
Right, but let's be super clear. It is not limited to PFAS. The DEP order requires the applicant to study, sample contamination and figure out if it's a problem. And if it's not a problem, we move ahead. It's easy. And if it's a problem, we don't want contamination spread into the drinking water.
Okay,
Simple.
So does that special condition, the last one, about complying with the other boards and
Yeah, I mean, that would definitely.
that covers it, right?
Yes,
So we
in my
can-
opinion.
I think
We
so.
can vote on this with that added in
Yeah.
to your other conditions, and
Yeah.
it covers everything, right?
The only question is, do we want to review David's document, or are we good with,
I'm good with it, the way he's.
because you're essentially
He's already spoken to
cut and
Brian.
pasted some of this from previous
That's
ones.
true. That's
Most
true.
of this,
Yes.
other than the chain link fence and the, so I don't think there's a whole lot,
So Carl, let me take a shot at a order of conditions. So we'll issue an order of conditions, move to issue an order of conditions, and we'll have special conditions that address, as we discussed previously, the fence, the 5-foot high fence. That's going to protect the turtles.
Well, that's on the plan.
It's on the plan already, so we
So,
don't really
yeah.
need a special for that, do we?
No, that's just referencing the plan.
Okay.
I did ask Brian to put the chain link fence on the habitat restoration plan,
Okay.
so which he's going to do.
And how about the monitoring? Is that on the plans?
No, there's going to be a requirement for that in the order of conditions with a specific set of requirements to include in the plan, and and then they'll come back. Whoever it is that's preparing the plan will come back with that to me for approval, and there may be a little bit of back and forth, but I feel perfectly comfortable with that process. I think we can work it out.
Good.
Again, it's already been done with another project.
Good. So the condition of the monitoring plan be approved by our agent? And then the restriction to Lot 4, is that on the plan, or do we need a special for that?
Well, you are going to get me that declaration of restriction for parcel X, which will also apply to Lot 4. And then there will also, in addition to that, there will also be as a perpetual condition, explicitly stated that there'll be no further, in perpetuity, there will be no further alterations to the buffer zone on Lot 4, with the exception of whatever is necessary in the case of immediate threats to human health, safety, and property. Like if there's a tree that's about ready to fall down, then
Would it also include invasive management?
that's a standard perpetual condition. Yes.
All right, so a perpetual condition to protect Lot 4. The restoration, is that covered in the plans now, or do we need?
No, that will require a plan to come back as well for restoration of the upland or the wooded habitat in the buffer zone.
Okay.
Perpetual condition to protect Lot 4 or the whole
Yes.
project?
Lot 4.
Lot
Just
4.
Lot
is
4,
what I'm hearing.
because the declaration of restriction that Natural Heritage is requiring on parcel X will cover that. Now, that's not a conservation restriction, but I gather it's something Natural Heritage does frequently, and it is just as binding, under MESA.
And we're going to have the turtle protection plan as well.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes. And the nesting area construction sequence.
Okay. With the nesting area,
Construction and maintenance.
construction
Plan.
and maintenance sequence.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
And then we're going to have a condition that says that the project, the applicant will comply with all local, state, and federal environmental laws and regulations.
And provide copies of permits.
And provide copies of permits.
Issued pursuant to the aforementioned or something
Is
like
this
that.
prior to any building or any?
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
but slow down. You can comply with the state hazardous waste rules. We saw this, remember, at 270? They can comply with the state has waste rules and still dig up the site without understanding the contamination. So do we want this condition to say, well, I guess our town calls it a clean letter from DEP? I mean, do we want this to be, hey, fix the problem? Because you can comply. It is like a 3-year window. You can do nothing for 3 years. on
Well,
contamination.
certainly, and this was put in a previous order of conditions as well. You could certainly say that the commission shall be copied on all correspondence or provided with copies of all correspondence between the applicant, the owner, and, DEP and, related agencies.
Right, but DEP in their Has Waste program does not, well, I'm going to say this carefully because it's not, what I'm saying is not, could be argued, but they're not looking at redevelopment. I mean, they may require, remember that, the RAM plan, they may require a plan, right? But you can comply, there's lots of ways to comply. So the question before this commission is, do we want to know if there's a contamination problem before construction starts? Or do we just want to let it run out through a very long state process in an era of state budget cuts?
Well, I don't know if there's much we can do about that, but let me bring up the DEP's letter. And just, we can remind ourselves of what it is directing the applicant to, or actually the property owner to do. So, the MCP requires responsible parties to take necessary response actions at properties where there is or has been a release or threat of release of oil and or hazardous material. If you do not take the necessary response actions or fail to perform them in an appropriate and timely manner, Mass DEP is authorized by MGL Chapter 21E to have the work performed by its contractors. By taking such response actions, you can avoid liability for response action costs incurred by Mass DEP and its contractors in performing these actions, and for possible sanctions which may be imposed for failure to perform necessary response actions under the MCP. So I mean, if the commission is copied on all correspondence between the owner and the applicant relative to this matter, I would think the commission would be alerted very early on about what the course of action will be. I think that's your concern.
No, we need the LSPs here for this, but response actions can be a wide range of things. And, again, I'm not an LSP, but I recall there's up to a 3-year time period. There's different time periods for different things, but it is not a DEP is going to get the site free of contamination in the next 6 months. It could drag on for years and still comply. Okay, so that's the LSP's job, is to figure out how to comply, which is what this letter directs the owner to do. But compliance can be a lot of different pathways that do not necessarily, they might, but they may not, give us assurance we're meeting our obligation to prevent groundwater pollution, drinking water contamination. It's complicated, and I know this commission went through this on some of these other properties. And I know it's painful, but that's just how the law reads. It's not any assurance to this commission that these words. And
So, Peter, what are you suggesting it would say, or we would say in the condition?
the safest approach for the town to protect the drinking water is to require, this isn't the right word at the state level, require what's called a clean closure. It's a letter from DEP saying, yeah, you did your response actions, you did lots of sampling, you've proven there is no contamination leaving your property. That's the process that can take years. And that's the point, if we want to be really protective, that's the point we need to be at. If you want to be less protective, you can leave weak language like this, or you can just simply trust the state process. And again, the state people are good, but they're overloaded. When you talk to them, they'll tell you, we can't get to everything. So the question becomes, is this commission's job, and this is the gray area, it doesn't say this in our regs, is this commission's job to be conservative because we're talking about a human carcinogen? Or do we want to be less conservative and allow development to proceed? And that's sort of beyond the scope of the commission, I understand that, but that's the answer to your question. It's complicated.
Well, so I think then that request would best go to the Board of Health.
Yeah, that's right.
To request that the Board of Health impose a condition not allowing construction to start until the owner and the applicant get a clean bill of health from Mass DEP. The commission definitely does not have that authority.
Yes, they have closer to that authority than we do. I wish we did, but.
I mean, we can talk about that in the gap analysis, giving the commission that kind of authority. But
And I have to say this, I want to be super clear how I feel. I'm not trying to make a problem here. It's just we all signed on to protect drinking water. And you've got known carcinogens found on the site. Our reg doesn't say protect drinking water for stuff that's in our jurisdiction. That's not what the regs say. And the regs actually do say we can consider.
I think I hear you. I think from my point of view, we don't have the latitude right now to do that. I think it has to be, we have to hope that and depend on the health department. They have the jurisdiction.
Yeah, and I personally would be comfortable that we're addressing our, help me out here, Chris, you're the lawyer, but I'd be comfortable with that kind of action. Demonstrates we're doing what we're supposed to do, because we don't have, the health department has that town bylaw.
So going back to Chris's motion and to the specific wording, Chris, do you have?
Maybe we can add some words around the fact that they will not have any significant or cumulative adverse impact on our town drinking water safety.
As demonstrated by the hydrogeo study that they're doing with the Board of Health.
I think that's
That's the key, is like, Don't just say,
Yeah.
we have to
Yeah.
have the basis for that
That's a
judgment.
little open, and what you just added closes it,
And
tightens it down a little more.
But
does that work?
I'm not sure how it would work, because it's within the realm of possibility that, not speaking for the Board of Health, but I think it's within the realm of possibility that when the Board of Health sees the result of the new and improved hydrogeological study, they may not feel that Title V systems are appropriate, and therefore there would have to be sewer connections. So I think the best the commission can do in the wording of the order of conditions is, again, say that all Board of Health requirements shall be satisfied, or, and provided with all copies from, same or something like that, permits.
But requirements in the Board of Health bylaw, not the Board of Health deliberations. Because sometimes they're different. The bylaw says you gotta have a hydrogeo study that proves there's no impact. That's what we want in our approval. We
Well,
want the science to tell us, nothing to worry about.
but I mean, the Board of Health obviously has to make that determination.
Yeah,
So-
I see what you're saying.
I mean,
Okay, Chris, again, depends, reread or repeat what you had last put down there for that part. It was
I
meeting
think
the.
I was just adding something that said that the applicant and owner will not have any significant or cumulative effect, adverse impact or effect upon the public drinking water of the
Yeah.
town of Chelmsford, and will be fully compliant with our Board of Health regulations.
As demonstrated by the hydrogeologic study and the Board of Health assessment of these septic systems and the contamination on site. I think we're in trouble if we're not that specific.
well, but we might be in trouble if we are that specific.
Well,
And if the applicant doesn't appeal it, then it's okay, but, I guess I would feel most comfortable showing some specific wording to town council and getting an opinion from her on that.
Okay, we
So,
can-
so can you draft up something that I can,
a permit condition?
yeah, along the lines you've just been describing?
Yeah, and I would like the commission, before I do that, to think about, you don't have to do it now, but how protective do we want to be of our drinking water? If DEP says, oh yeah, there's a lot of contamination, go ahead and clean it up, it's gonna take 3 years, do we allow the project to move forward?
Well,
That's the question.
I can just point to the email exchange that I had with DEP on, another address where DEP essentially, and I can forward it to you, DEP essentially said that from the commission's perspective, PFAS anyway, he's talking about PFAS, there may be other chemicals out here, PFAS was not a regulated chemical. Nothing the commission could do.
Yeah, and I've had discussions with the board of MACC, or representatives of the board, that tell me this is a gray area,
Well,
because this PFAS thing is kind of new.
certainly didn't seem to be a gray area with DEP, but, it may be.
All right, we can work on that. But I think we're talking about a permit condition to satisfy the commission members that we're meeting our obligation to prevent pollution. That's the challenge here,
To the groundwater, yeah,
to the drinking
to the
water.
drinking
yeah.
water, yes.
And let's put a finer point. I mean, if it was just going into the turtle habitat, not humans, I'd feel different. But the fact is, it's a known human carcinogen.
This is the PFAS.
Yeah, and it's right next to the wells. And we're talking about needing to pump more water in town, which sucks more
That's been the
stuff.
whole thing since day one on this, is that it is right on top of the water. It's, okay. All right, so then that means Chris's conditions will include, or the conditions here that Chris is proposing will include a statement that Peter will write and send to David and share it with the rest of us.
and to say, I would like to get an opinion from town council.
That would be good.
On your wording.
Yeah, because I don't personally want to waste people's time if
So what
it's
we-
not appropriate.
Why don't we,
You had a question that you didn't want to go too far one way either, right? You were concerned that we could be too specific? Is that what you meant earlier? With the, because we're
Well,
treading on the Board of Health's-
yeah, I think too specific in terms of getting into what are really the Board of Health's responsibilities and our
That's why the
statutory
attorney needs to
obligations.
look at it and
I think so.
Clarify.
I'm just, my basic philosophy is, not putting in conditions that are not compliant with the Conservation Commission's statutes and regulations, and are unenforceable, in addition.
Right.
That I don't. like to do.
Is there another way for us to execute our responsibility by writing a letter to our Board of Health or even putting it in the permit? This whole thing is contingent on Board of Health doing your thing.
You can certainly put that in.
And that's
as
one
a
option.
condition.
That's the less conservative approach.
And there's precedent for that. The commission did that with other projects, saying, all applicable permits and approvals shall be obtained from, other local, state, and federal agencies, and copies of the associated permits shall be, provided to the Conservation Commission.
we've got that in there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't we go with that? I think we go with that, and it is what it is.
And does that say that our permit is contingent on the Board of Health process? Is that really what
Yes.
those words say?
Yes.
Which makes sense, right? The way our town is set up?
Yep.
We've got this obligation, but the hardcore rules are with somebody else,
Right.
right?
Yep.
I think.
So did you move that, Chris, or did you just
Yeah, I made that motion.
motion? I'll
What the
second it.
hell does that motion
Wait a
say?
minute, wait a minute.
You're gonna have to sort it out on the video, right?
Let's go back through it one more time. Sorry, it's a good, thank you, Vivian, for keeping us on Earth here, on planet Earth.
Back to breath.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to require that the applicant and the property owner comply with all local, state, and federal environmental laws and regulations, including our own Board of Health. That's going to be one condition, okay? And then we're also going to have a turtle protection plan that's going to be filed and approved by our agent. We have a restoration plan that's going to be filed and approved by our agent. And there's going to be a restriction, a perpetual restriction and condition on Lot 4 as well, to protect the turtle habitat. And we're going to have continuous monitoring of the site, again, to protect the turtle habitat as well.
Is that it?
I think that's it.
That's the motion from Chris.
Yeah.
I'll second.
Second from Bill. And Peter has to abstain. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Okay,
So, do you want to see a draft in 2 weeks, or are you
yes,
okay with me?
yes, let's see a draft. I think that's worth it. Let's review the draft in 2 weeks.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.
Actually, I'm not gonna hand these out. Everyone's leaving.
Okay, next on our agenda, we have 61 Smith Street. This is 61 Smith Street, which is
Stuff there, yeah.
Maureen Harold is the representing the applicant.
Yes, so Maureen, this afternoon, Maureen sent me an email
Okay.
saying that she wasn't sure that she could attend tonight's meeting. She was going to be planning to attend by Zoom. She wasn't sure she could. If she was able to, it would probably be a little bit later. So if she said if she wasn't able to make it all, she requested a continuance.
Okay.
So,
Plenty on our agenda, so if she checks in, let us know.
okay,
Yeah, we'll just come back to it if she
okay.
comes on.
And if she doesn't make it at all, we just vote a continuance.
Let's just sit until the end if that's the
Okay.
case. Okay. Because it would be nice to close that one out if we can. I think, from what I understand, we have most of what we were looking for.
I think so,
let's-
but I'd
let's
like
wait
to
and
hear
see.
from her.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Okay, next is on our agenda is,
So just, Mr. Chairman, so, John, what is your request?
One moment, 5 minutes of time about the dam.
oh,
That's up to you to decide, Carl. Were you here under the citizen concerns? When, I mean, citizens' concerns was brought up first thing in the meeting. Were you here then?
We were caught with that emergency that you had
Okay.
in front.
So-
We were 5 minutes late.
yeah, that's fine, yeah.
Okay.
That's fine. Come on up, and sounds like you have a citizen concern, is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I wasn't,
So, John Kelly, 38 Dunshire Drive. This is just quickly, what's happened is, you're well aware of all the flooding we have and all the problems we have on Dunshire Drive, okay? And to my understanding, you just approved the pallet drive, which is gonna add more water to that area. Swain Pond drains directly in. Swain Pond is a buffer area for the large amount of water that comes off Route 3 and everything else, okay? Just recently, someone asked to put a dam across the culvert that underneath Dunstable Road, which drains the pond. So apparently the DPW was told.
I authorized the DPW to do that based on information I got back from
So
them.
someone informed us, you, that they never saw the water level this low. I've been there nearly 50
Right,
years.
two people did.
Okay.
Two people did.
And I'm gonna show, I can bring you, Joe here, and a lot of people can tell you that we see it a lot lower and a lot higher. The point is, there's no way that I think anybody has the authorization to just put a dam in because someone feels the water in their backyard is low. When that dam floods all the time, the people who live right there are underwater, and I can show you all the photos, and you can see all the lawsuits against FEMA and everything else. I don't feel anybody had a right to dam up waterway. It caused a lot of problems. And if you want to discuss it later, right now we're coming into a wet season. So you may have said, okay, we had a dry winter. You know we had the driest summer ever last year. We had no rain, we were in shortage of water. Take the dam out now, because we don't know what the spring season's gonna do. We don't know what the pallet drive is gonna do. And we do know that the outlet of Dunshire Drive is terrible. Take the board out for now, see what's going on for the summer. I'm sorry if someone's backyard doesn't look as attractive because they don't have a little skim of water on it. But when it does become a problem and they have to pull that board out, not only is it difficult and dangerous, it floods us on Dunshire Drive terribly. So what right you have to dam up a waterway, I have no understanding, but I'm asking you to remove it now and you can figure out whether or not it's legit or not. But as at this moment, I don't think anybody has a right to dam it up. Please remove it. Do you need more evidence? Do you want photos? Do you want any, you want to hear from the neighbors who flood because of that dam?
Well, are we going to have discussion on this?
I don't think we should have discussion on this right now.
Could we
So
just
all I'm
ask one
asking-
question?
You have a clarifying?
Where is this dam? Is it the one controlling Swain Pond?
Yes.
Okay.
And it has no purpose. It's never there most of the time. The people themselves put that there simply for their entertainment or their. So right now, they asked it to be put in. The DPW put it in. I'm just saying we have trouble ahead, and when they're going to pull that thing out, we're going to get flooded terribly.
Okay,
So just take it off for now
Thank you.
until you study it.
we hear you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I did, I'll just say one thing quickly. I did mention to John that the next meeting, there will be a presentation of the consultants' watershed studies. They looked at 3 studies, or 3 watersheds. analyzed the issues, and we're coming up, we're going to present recommendations, conceptual recommendations on how to deal with them. The Dunshire area is one of the areas, and I spoke with Courtney. She said, people coming, residents coming and giving public input is fine. And I
Okay.
think that's the most appropriate.
And just to be clear, that's at 6:30 at our next meeting.
That's at 6:30.
We're starting a half
yes.
hour early.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I just add that, I think I have this right, there was a flooding issue in this part of town and others, and our DPW team, stormwater and engineer team, has taken a look at that and determined they needed a consultant to analyze how the water flows. And this is the results of that money spent on the consultant advice, is what,
Right, and how to deal with the flooding issues
thank you.
in those areas, yes.
Okay,
And all I'm
Thank
asking you is until the study is completed, you let the water flow the way it should.
I hear you. Okay, discussion now is, in our agenda is Peter, you wanted to talk about the ban, proposal to ban SGARs, SGARs, which is second-generation anticoagulant rodenticides.
Yeah, I'm gonna make this super quick.
I had to look it up.
I'll make it super quick. So, I attended a workshop a week or two ago by our resident wildlife rehabilitator, Jane Newhouse. And if anyone's driven by her house and where she keeps the animals, she's got a little sign about this. But apparently, the rat poison used by professional folks, so it's the little black bait boxes you see around a lot of our town buildings. Apparently, the poison in those bait boxes was changed to something new at some point in the past. And you can see this on Jane's website. All the wildlife rehabilitators in the state apparently are seeing an uptick of animals that are poisoned by this stuff, and it kills them. So the city of Lowell, and I think Jane was involved, actually working with a pest control expert, decided to not use this stuff. And Jane has approached our town leaders with a similar request, and they're looking at it. So what I was hoping our commission would do is, and I'd be happy to do the work, is write a super simple letter, not getting into any of this pros and cons, just saying, one of our 8 interests is to protect wildlife, and we are all in favor of kinder and gentler, or however you want to word it, looking at kinder and gentler approaches. I don't think we want to take a specific position, because none of us have expertise. But I thought it was a good opportunity for our commission to do something related to one of the 8 interests we're protecting. And I guess it would be, well, it's whatever y'all want to do, if anything, but I guess it would be a simple letter to, I guess, Paul Cohen, and I think our DPW actually runs the municipal building pest control program. There's actually a written plan. So we're talking just about town buildings, not trying to get into private residence. So that's the pitch.
So there's a specific proposal on the table. Is that correct?
My understanding, and I talked to Jane, and she's more than happy to come talk to us. She's got a lovely presentation, so I hesitate to speak for others, but my understanding is she has approached DPW and Paul Cohen with this idea, pointing out that Lowell has done it, Arlington has done it. It's a thing that's happening with people that are into critters. So my thought was to simply point out that as a commission, we favor actions that support wildlife, which is part of our mission. Didn't want to get into any details in the letter, because I don't know them.
Thoughts?
I mean, if Peter can draft something up for us, let's bring it in for the next meeting and look at it, and we can vote on it then.
That's fine.
It's something we should support.
Yeah.
But I
Is it
think
a Board
it's,
of Health thing?
This wouldn't be Board of Health, I don't
Well,
think.
Rats are a Board of Health.
Yeah, apparently the problem is sometimes children play and like open up these, you've seen these little black
I've
boxes.
seen them everywhere.
It's rat control.
Every
there's
job
no-
in the country has them.
Right, as I understand it, there's no proposal to eliminate the black boxes, it's just what you put in them. And you can put different, and I actually met with a pest control guy, and they're doing this in Lowell. They've banned them, and he says he's got data, that shows that the alternative works. It's weird. It's vitamin D, apparently, and maybe there's some other things to make the bait work. I looked it up. It's a thing. It's real. So that's the idea.
Why don't you
You want a letter, and I'll
get a letter and bring it?
Keep it short
We can
and
look
sweet.
at it at the next meeting.
Yeah, we can look at it and see if we're okay with it or not.
Yeah.
But I would definitely suggest, Peter, you coordinate with Paul so that you know exactly what's being proposed.
Well, that's right, exactly. And I didn't want to take it quite that far as to say we support option A or B.
Well, but at least drafting the letter in the context of
Yeah.
knowing what's on the table, I
Yeah.
think
That's a
would be
good point.
Yeah.
That's
Find
good.
out if it's under our jurisdiction or the Board of Health first.
Well, we could still have an opinion.
Yeah.
We
no,
can have an
it's-
opinion on
That's all we're
anything.
doing is having an opinion.
It's not our job, but
not our job.
but it's our job.
Requirement.
Changing the poison out isn't our job, and managing the pest control program isn't our job. I can't do that. But advocating for wildlife is part of our assignment.
And I'll touch base with the Board of Health or Donna.
Yeah.
To find out what
Yeah.
their jurisdiction, their involvement is.
And John, I didn't answer your question. I'm sorry. I just did a little reading, so forgive me. I really don't know much about it, other than I believe Jane. Apparently, there has been cases of kids getting poisoned, pets. Apparently, if your dog mucks around on these boxes and eats a couple of these things, what it does is it's an anti-coagulant. Do I have that backwards? It prevents your blood from clotting. So if you have this poison in you, it's like if you have to take a drug to whatever.
Aspirin,
Yeah. So apparently, what happens is critters get cut;
and they bleed out.
they just bleed out.
Yeah.
Or a dog eats the
your
mouse or
pet.
the rat.
That's what
Well,
happens, yeah.
Well, that's,
There's that. Okay, I should put a finer point.
Either your hawk swoops in or an eagle,
Right, right.
predators
Right.
come in, and then boom, you're losing the
Thank you.
apex predators. Yeah.
Thank you. That's the real issue. Is it
Or you're-
accumulates
or
in the
your own
predators?
pet. You're out there with your dog and.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, it's not about dogs. I'm sorry, John. I wasn't clear. It's about owls and hawks and foxes and bobcats and eagles.
survival
Okay,
of
so
the
let's,
fittest.
let's get a letter, and if you can talk with the Board of Health, David, and maybe, Peter, if you can also check in with Paul and just get a little clarity on what,
I will.
what's looking at.
Okay, thank you.
Next thing I want to talk about briefly, it's the lighting. You want to talk about the lighting also?
Well, same story. We had Mr. Beatty, is it?
Yeah.
Yes.
And Chris mentioned this, but I thought because Carl, you and Chris, you heard talk at MACC about how lighting affects what we're supposed to protect. So my thought was the same thing. I think there's a town meeting vote coming up. I don't know if I'm too late to the dance, but why couldn't our commission write a simple letter to the select board and maybe even town meeting reps saying we support this initiative? Now, we have to read that carefully because back to the planning board, and John's point, it's not our jurisdiction, so we have to be careful. And I don't want to go so far as to say we support proposal X or proposal Y. We need to defer that to the planning board, but the concept
Yeah. It is habitat.
we support.
It's
Because
actually
it's important for,
it
just
affects
ask
habitat.
town meeting reps really to remember that. And I'm picturing something, I'm sorry I didn't draft it, something simple.
Okay, there'll be time because the meeting is end of April, I think. Yeah.
But the
so-
select board and the finance board vote on warrant articles. I've lost track of that schedule.
That's actually probably coming up
So
soon.
is there any way we can, I mean, I guess I wouldn't want to vote for it if I hadn't seen the letter.
Yeah, and the
Chris,
bylaw
help.
seems to be fluid.
There were some concerns, not necessarily about the lighting itself, but about how it's applied and enforced, that we'll be addressing tomorrow. But we'll probably end up voting on it tomorrow. However, I think that the board would welcome input and letters of support or not support from any other boards in town as part of that.
And what's the timing of that, Chris? We don't have another 2 weeks to draft a letter here?
I
do
will
it,
probably
or-
be the one presenting it to the other boards with Kelly. I don't know when we're going to be presenting it to FinCom, and I don't know the schedule for Select Board, but it'll be between now and town meeting. And we could mention it during those presentations. We could also mention it during town meeting itself.
Well, that's what I was really thinking.
One of you wanted to speak at town meeting as well and say that the board supported or not, that would be okay too.
Well, how
Yeah,
about
I
this?
think-
Can I draft a letter that you all can look at at the next meeting? And then it may not get in the select board's hands in time,
That's fine.
but we could then,
Certainly for the town meeting, it would help. But it might get there in time, but let's do that and we can look at it at the next meeting. I think in principle, we support it, but the devil's in the details. That's
the hard part, because if there's something crazy in the bylaw that we don't like,
yeah. You can't turn lights on after 8 o'clock at night or something like that.
you have to stumble around in the dark.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right, thank you.
All right. Couple more things that I want to throw in here. Chris and I had a conversation about making some changes to our bylaws. And just bringing that up, that I think it's time to do that. Last I think this happened, changes were 2009. Does that sound about right? That's
Sounds
what I
right.
saw.
Yeah.
So that's 16 years. So it's time to
Yeah.
do that. So if anyone is interested, I know Chris has kind of raised his hand. And if anyone else, I'd like to see 2 or 3 people with David working on this. And-
It's got specific things you're thinking about?
Well, I mean, Hildreth has really, to me, highlighted a lot of gaps. Hildreth and 270 Billerica, the Brick Kiln project. We've had a number of projects that have kind of highlighted gaps and weaknesses in our jurisdiction. So things like that. I think there's also, there was some comments about improving wetland bylaws to include adjacent upland resource areas. And also, you and I talked about trail work, that even just simple trail work, that we could add something in there about, some of the proposed simple trail improvements that we're looking at, that they could be exempt and be explicitly called out, more explicitly called out than they are now. So there's a handful of things, and maybe with public input, there might be a few other things.
So that actually gets into my question, Carl. Would you be open to like having an interested resident or residents be involved as well?
I think so.
Okay.
Having the public involved is generally a good thing, generally.
Does that make it a public meeting, and then do all of us?
No, it would be a
sign up?
subcommittee. I think it'd be a subcommittee.
Well, yeah, and
Or a working group?
Well, yeah, I mean, officially designated subcommittees do have to comply with the open meeting law.
So let's figure out how to do this. I don't have the answer right now.
Do a working group.
Yeah, it could be a working group, because that's really, in the end, it's going to come up with a proposal, and then we will vote to accept or modify or whatever, and then I believe it has to go to town meeting, right?
The changes in the bylaw would.
Regulations would.
Yeah,
Regulations
bylaws,
do not.
Yeah.
So let me check with the town clerk on that. What constitutes a committee subject to the open meeting law?
Okay. And then we can figure that out the next meeting. We'll put it as an agenda item. So if someone's interested in that, give it some thought, and we can look at that.
I will, because I don't want to have to deliver another lecture. Somebody will kill me.
We don't want you to either.
Agree. Agree.
So, a couple more things before we get into our next speaker here. There's a volunteer fair here in town on March 22nd, and I'm considering signing up because they're asking commissions, committees, and town boards to participate beyond just the normal suspects in volunteer fairs. And it's a Saturday, the 22nd, so not this Saturday, but in a week, and it's from 1 to 4 at the senior center. I'm thinking about signing us up for that, if anybody's interested in participating. I would have to leave by 3 o'clock that day, but if you're interested, let me know. It'd be nice to have at least another person there.
Is that a table, Carl?
I think it'd be a table, yeah. Yeah, so I don't think it's, and it's also Volunteer Appreciation day as designated by the Select Board. So, because we're all volunteers, members of a commission, and the Select Board are volunteers, and the Planning Board, and so they're kind of rolling what used to be the municipal meeting open house into this session together instead of two different things last year. So you can go and get a sweet treat, is what I heard, something from the Neshoba kitchen, Neshoba Tech Kitchen. I think they're going to have something there. So April townwide cleanup is coming up also, so clean up your neighborhood, get out and clean up your neighborhood. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about quickly was agenda sequencing. David and I talked about putting land management at the top of the agenda for one meeting a month, probably our second meeting of the month. And we'll have an opportunity, maybe almost an opportunity next month, because there's no new regulatory hearings similar to the planning board. So we still will talk about the Hildreth conditions, but other than that, and we'll see if Maureen shows up. We might have the other one.
I mean, I would
Smith Street.
anticipate that will be a short proceeding.
But yeah, so anyway, we would, the idea being that we're trying to rebalance our focus to some more focus on land management and not just as so much time on regulatory. And we could say regulatory hearings start at 7:30, let's say, and I'm sure we can do plenty of discussions between 7 and 7:30, and then at 7:30, if we're still going, that's fine. We just can't start the regulatory hearings until 7:30. So something like that, and you guys okay with that? Now, next meeting, we start at 6:30 because of the,
Yeah, and that'll be half an hour.
so maybe we don't do it next time, we just keep the
Well, but I think that might still work, that if, Hildreth and 61 Smith, if that could be done in half an hour, take the land management up at 7:30. I think
Yeah.
that was you just
However you
suggested.
want to do it next time, yeah. The 6:30 thing throws it off a little, so I don't know how long that's
You
going
want
to
to
be.
start it at 7 and end at 7:30, right?
Yeah, I
Or
think,
not next time, but-
that's feasible.
Yeah, okay.
It should be feasible.
Okay,
yeah.
all right, that's fine. Okay,
I'm saying the land management thing, you wanted to start at 7 and,
yeah.
It's
The
7:30.
what you don't want to do is finish at 7:15, because then you can't start the
Right.
hearings until 7:30, because that's what the posted time was.
that's
So
where
we
Peter
just-
comes in.
That's,
You fill some time.
ooh,
I meant that in a nice way.
okay.
So we're gonna tell what time the meeting starts?
Yeah, so it's 6:30, our
6:30.
meeting starts at 6:30, okay. The continual business, David, let's keep moving.
Okay, so,
Freeman Lake,
here's my initial stab at proposed locations of permanent monumentation for the parcel, foot of 7.
so David, the lake is on the bottom and the
The lake
streets
is
are
down
above.
here, so this
Okay,
is,
gotcha.
let me see if I can zoom in a
No,
little bit on this.
Okay.
So this is 7th, 6th, and 5th. So does everyone know where we're talking about
Yep.
at this point?
Yep.
So this is the commission's parcel. So again, this is just my initial stab. The red X is where I think it makes sense to put the permanent monumentation. Yes, there is a fairly high number along the road here, but I think it's important for the commission to know in terms of, like, I know there's been some concerns about, illegal parking and maybe, putting up some sort of permanent barrier to either prevent that or discourage it or whatever. So I think it's important to know where the boundary is along the right-of-way. For those purposes.
Is
So
it
that's-
not the edge of the road? It's in from the edge of the road?
Correct. If you see this little symbol, this little sort of squiggly symbol here, symbols, that's the actual pavement. And so the commission's property actually starts at the right-of-way. So the solid line is the right-of-way boundary, or the boundary between the right-of-way and the commission's land. So I think it's important to know where that is. Now, let me see how many am I, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, there's 11.
11.
So at 275 a piece,
three
that's
grand.
about $3,000. So.
For
you
one
know,
parcel.
For one
Seems like a
parcel.
lot to me.
It
It
does.
does. Can we,
Seems a
can
little
we take,
excessive.
can we get we don't have to all go out there, but I'd like to go. I've been out there many times. I'd like to go out there and, with that map and maybe with, I know you and I and Bill have been out there a
I
lot.
think the one closest to Seventh Avenue, you need one at the point there,
Okay.
and at the other end,
Those two.
those two are important. And the one where the widest part of the
Yeah.
land is,
Like,
down by the lake?
Down at the lake.
Yeah, right there.
yeah. You
Those three are important, and maybe if the road, I can't see it really well from here, but,
275 apiece, Bill.
Huh?
The 275
I know,
apiece.
I'm just thinking.
Build a post
I-
and rail fence.
No, you need those three, because the issue near Seventh Avenue, there's people parking, and down at the other end, there's a dock
Yeah,
that we're not sure of whose land it's on.
that's the key
So
one.
those three are important to me. The other ones,
That gets into the parking part, and the right of way, but without
think
seeing it, without going there. Sorry.
I think
go ahead.
those three you mentioned, Bill, are important, but the one directly parallel to Sixth Lane,
by the road?
yeah,
Yeah.
that one right there.
Yeah.
I want to be able to have it so if we have to tape off or to pull off a certain control point, we can very easily.
Right, if you have those three or four,
Right.
you can measure,
Good point.
you can have the plan, and you can
Right.
find, you can
DPW,
locate
it's
the
not
other
gonna be a
ones.
Big deal, they can go in and do it.
Right.
Bill, you're suggesting putting them where people are going to potentially be using the property?
No.
Did I hear that right?
No, because down on both ends, we don't know where our land starts and stops. So those are important,
Yeah.
because people are parking on one end, and people have a dock on the other end, so we're not sure if it's our land or theirs. And the one closest to the lake, that makes that triangle, you can pull a string from the one closest to Seventh to that one, and you know where the land is, because there's a question there too,
Right.
of who owns what, because there's boats there and there's different things there.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
I think that makes sense. And I like your point, Mark, about the one point on the road, because then you can use that as your control point.
My thinking was, say, like here, if you have monumentation here and here, then it's just a straight line.
Yep.
It's an actual straight
Yep.
line. So any encroachments along that line should
Right.
be fairly straightforward
Right.
to, determine.
And the other end was an issue too.
Yeah, that's
Yes, the
what,
two
that was
ends,
the,
right, Bill?
that was the starting.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what started
That's
this.
where Darlene really,
Yeah,
she's been on that.
which
that
is
spot.
true, and we
Yeah.
we went out there and we couldn't tell.
It's very difficult looking at the GIS.
Right.
and-
But it's interesting on that right-hand side, it looks like the town property line is just a continuation of Fourth Avenue, edge of pavement, if that's the
Yes,
scale.
yeah, that's the case for a lot of these.
Yeah.
Fourth
Just
Avenue is like a paper,
Just
Yeah, it's
Oh, it's
not,
not actually there.
it's not there.
no,
That's
there's
right.
nothing there.
That's right.
Yeah, that's why
That's what
it's so
throws-
important.
yeah.
So I guess what I ask, maybe mark this plan up, with,
Is
what
this
you
the
feel.
only spot you were looking at, or is there another parcel?
There's another parcel as well, but that I haven't gotten to yet.
Okay.
But I thought this was the higher priority.
Yeah,
So.
This is the contentious one, the most contentious one.
Right, although the other one actually has the most encroachments on it.
Yeah, but we had given some latitude to people to encroach on that, but I think they've overstepped what we gave them latitude for, is the
well,
way I.
we can look at what we said and
Yeah.
if we want to change it.
Okay, so, how do we go forward?
Well, I guess I need to get some
These are
feedback
simple
from,
signs, right?
Can you send us that,
Oh.
These
that
are-
file?
yes.
No,
Okay.
these are granite.
And then we can get out there and, I'd like to just look at it
Sure.
with the file, you know.
No, we-
Okay.
we need
So
to-
where those
people-
X's are now,
People took
is
over
there a
part of it.
pipe or anything there to
I
give us
thought
a
this
stake, a
was
wooden
No,
stake in the
no.
ground?
No, there's nothing there.
Nothing,
This is
yeah.
the seventh
Yeah, so you're
Yeah,
gonna have to
okay.
outside.
do your best.
Yeah.
But at least you can
Took it
get
over.
eyes on it, so.
Right, right,
And then the other
okay,
thing, same thing. There's people-
all right,
Okay,
okay.
So,
he's gonna
we need
send,
this,
he's gonna send a copy around to us.
okay,
Yeah.
And then you can take it out there and get
Yeah.
out there and look at it.
okay,
Okay. Next up,
thank you.
land management. We have a guest speaker here, one of our excellent Open Space and Rec Plan Committee members. Okay, so-so. He said it, he was doing this.
Hi, Dave Sperry, 12 Longview Drive here in Chelmsford. Did you guys get printouts of this guy? So you can take notes on it? Otherwise, I can pass them out for you guys.
I don't think we got
No,
printouts.
I did not
Okay.
print out any.
I'm a person that likes paper.
Carl, so Maureen just checked in. Do you want to take her first before you do this, or?
Does that work, Dave?
Yeah, that
Yeah, I appreciate that, Dave. Okay.
You there, Maureen? Not sure she heard.
There's another one.
Wow.
Maureen?
Maureen is on mute if she's,
Didn't see you. Is that what
Maureen?
it is?
Can you hear us?
Oh, I turned on here.
Yes, I hear you. Do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Oh, okay.
So you're
Sorry
on.
about that.
You're on.
Okay, so at the last conservation meeting for 61 Smith Street, the commission requested some changes to the plan. One of them was to shade the impervious area that's proposed to be removed. So we changed the plan to shade that area. That's 3811 square feet. The second suggestion the commission made was regarding the surface runoff and the drainage down the driveway. So we enlarged the infiltration trench from a 1-by-1 stone trench to a 2-foot by 2-foot stone trench. Let's see. In addition, some of the pavers we're proposing are proposed to be removed and return this area to grass. We're providing an average width of 11 feet between the driveway and the block wall. And in addition, we're proposing to plant 5 native shrubs just beyond the block wall, just to protect that area from any type of just surface flow during heavy rain events. The infiltration trench and the lawn and the native plantings, I believe, will help mitigate any type of driveway runoff and prevent erosion and sedimentation to the neighbor's property. And I can open it up to the commission with any questions.
all right, thank you, Maureen. John? you wanna start us
No,
off?
I asked about the, going to the 2 foot next to the house.
Yep.
She handled that, and I think that's gonna be a lot better off. I have no no problems.
Okay, Bill?
Maureen, did you say you had a trench down the length of the driveway from Smith Street down? No.
So I discussed to my client about that, and some of that area is vegetated, and he wanted to keep that vegetated. So that's why I didn't propose it. But the pavers beside the driveway are proposed to be removed, and we'll return that to lawn, so that should help as well.
Do you know is the driveway pitched one side or to the other, or left to right, or right to left, do you know? Or is it,
That's a good question. I don't have the foggiest idea. I'm not even sure if it's pitched. It doesn't look to be on the topography on the plan.
Right.
Looks kind of generic.
I was just concerned about the water coming down the driveway, just running off into the back. I think that was the big issue. The asphalt driveway is there now. It's gonna be, you've got a pile of fill. Is that on top of the driveway? You dug a hole there, right? For the
Yeah,
foundation?
so part of the filing was an after the fact for the addition because I don't think they realized they needed to come to conservation.
Right. All right. Well, they're gonna have to, where the pile of fill is, when they do the, is that addition a garage, right? Is the addition a garage?
Yes.
Yes, a garage under and living space on top.
Right.
So I think, Bill, you'd like to see the driveway pitched so that the runoff goes into that trench,
Right.
right?
Rather
We-
than pitch it all to the right.
That can be put in as a condition,
All right.
and we'll have to, obtain verification of that, but that can be put in as a condition.
You know, if they can pitch it where the pile of fill is, right in front of the garage, the proposed garage, you could pitch that, say, to the left a little bit and have the water run. I think that'd be important. It'll take some of the water away. And the other thing I think we were concerned about last time was the, if you're gonna do the work in the back first and put that, remove the pavement, you're gonna leave the shed, I guess, right?
Yes.
Back. So remove the pavement and restore that area before you do a lot of the work at the garage and out front. I think that was brought up at the last time, yeah. Yeah. 'Cause
I
how
think
you
we
think-
have to.
Yeah, so, I mean, if that was part of the condition, to sequence it properly, start from the
Okay.
back, get that restored, take the pavement out, put the grass back. That'll take care of some of the water too while you're doing work there and stuff. No, that's it.
Okay.
That was it.
Mark?
No, just to carry a little further on what Bill was mentioning on removing the pavement in the back, I want to see that stabilized also with some kind of hydro seeding or something to keep that stable before the work
Okay.
begins on the structure itself. And that goes for, on the left, that would be the east, the west side of the house too. You're gonna remove all those pavers over there?
Yes.
And that's probably gonna need some something to keep that stabilized also. I don't know what it looks like it's a flat area, but before it and beyond it, there's a large topo change.
So the thought was to remove all those pavers and return it to lawn.
Yeah.
Prior to the pavers being constructed, that was all lawn there.
Okay. I don't know what your point is.
Just that it's going to be stabilized with lawn. That's it.
Yeah, before construction begins, I want to see that process done.
Mark, I think what you're saying is you want to see the lawn fully established and growing before construction of the garage begins. I mean, that could take, a fair amount of the growing
Well, I
season.
want to see this, it's seeded, and if you have to put hay down, I don't know what else you'd put on there, just to stabilize it.
Okay.
I know this is an after the fact, and I think we're being pretty generous in just requiring that.
So temporary stabilization,
Yeah.
pending the grass again becoming fully established and growing. Okay.
And what Bill brought up too about the right-hand side of the driveway, which would be the east. It's a pretty steep driveway. You've done the calculations and you feel that's gonna stay, gonna be able to absorb all that groundwater, the surface water?
So no calculations have been provided. I can provide those to commission if you'd like.
It does feed down to a sensitive area.
Right. No, I understand that, and that's why we were trying to incorporate the lawn back and additional plantings. If the commission wants an infiltration trench along the right-hand side of the driveway, we can add that.
Well, I don't want anything. I want you to tell me what you're gonna do.
Well, what I'd like to do is what's shown on the plan. If that doesn't work for the commission, we can do the infiltration trench. If the commission requires calculations, I can provide some calculations.
I wanna make sure that this is gonna work, that's all. If you think you need to do calculations, I suggest you do them. If you think whichever design is gonna be sufficient. I'm not an engineer.
Okay, I'm not an engineer either. I'm a wetland scientist, but I can have an engineer review this and get calculations to you. It's not a problem.
Okay.
Let's do that.
I'm good.
Okay. Chris?
I'm basically pretty good with this. I mean, I like using the vegetation approach to try to control the runoff through the vegetation and the planting, so I like that idea. That's all I have to say.
Peter?
Yeah, there's a lot to like. Two questions. Maureen, the plan talks about planting shrubs. And we ran into this in a previous hearing where I think the commission thought a shrub was a big bush and the applicant thought shrub was ground cover. Can you tell us what size shrubs or any further thoughts on what those shrubs ought to look like?
Sure. So what we'd like to do is plant native shrubs. Generally speaking, a minimum of 3 to 4 feet in height. You know, I can certainly provide the commission with a list of possible native shrubs. We could do anything from like high bush blueberries, because those are fun. We could do rhododendrons, but it's not a herbaceous ground cover. That's not the intent or the proposal.
Good, and I'll defer to David if you want to specify that in any conditions. And then I had one other question. And I'm sorry, I did not notice this when you were before us previously. These block walls, I'm looking at I guess it's the left side of the drawing, which must be west. And there's a block wall right at the 25-foot no disturb. And I'm curious, how tall is that wall, and is that a blockage to wildlife, which we're supposed to avoid?
It's a couple feet, right?
It's a couple feet anyways, 2 to 3 feet.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not a retaining wall. It's like a landscape wall, block wall from the surface.
Peter, it's about,
And,
I'd say 2 to 3 feet sounds right, just from my memory.
yeah, and I guess my question, I don't know if anyone wants to debate this, it's getting late, but my question is, was that wall installed when some of the other work was done that quote-unquote should have had a permit? And second, well, yeah, you may know that, but second, I'll just make it quick. Does the commission, do we want to allow a 2-foot-high barrier in that sensitive 25-foot zone? I think our ecologist would say don't do that. So, I'm sorry, Maureen, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's okay. I think, I don't know for sure, but I think it was likely installed with the pavers. I can certainly ask the homeowner on that, but that's probably what happened.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
of course,
so-
it's up to the discretion of the commission if you allow it to stay or if you'd like it removed.
Yeah, and I would just ask my fellow commissioners, because I actually don't know the precedent, do we allow 3-foot walls in the 25-foot no disturb zone? Especially when there's a wetland there and we know walls block at least little wildlife. And I think it's a long wall. And again, don't know what the site conditions are, so maybe if you remove the wall, you've got an erosion problem. So I'm just looking for some more information.
I don't recall the wall being 2 feet above grade. I thought it was at 2 feet above grade on the house side, but at grade on the other side.
Well, it can't be because it's downhill
On the
this way.
right-hand
this side.
side, it's
Right,
about this high,
right. So it could, the grade could come up flush with the wall here and then drop down 2 feet on that side, rather than the wall just being 2 feet above grade on both sides.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah, but I guess
That's my
the question
recollection.
more is what do our bylaws and regs and our
Well,
policies?
but if,
call for.
if it's the case where I'm recollecting, and I may be recollecting it wrong, then it's not a barrier to wildlife, because it's at the surface grade on one side.
Yeah, that would be a win-win for everybody.
So am I remembering that correctly, Maureen?
That's my memory. I can get some pictures for the commission. The last time I was out was with David, but and when I flagged it as well. That's my recollection. But I can get some photographs.
Yeah,
Clarify that.
Yeah, and again, I bring that up because the drawing does not show how long that wall is, but just looking at this, it might be a significant barrier if it's a significant length and a barrier, then I'd suggest we think about that. If it's not a barrier, I don't have a concern.
Okay.
I think the block wall on the left side of the house would create an erosion problem if you took it out, because there's a steep hill right there. It
Well,
drops off
Yeah,
pretty
it drops
fast.
right off.
I mentioned that, right?
Yeah, it drops off pretty fast.
Block
Block wall
10
is
feet.
set on grade.
Huh?
The block wall is set on grade.
Just sitting on the grass, on the
Just on
ground?
the grass. There's stone on the bottom of it, a little bit,
Yeah.
to level it, but it's just on grade.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And
So,
it's 2 blocks high, Mark?
5 or 6?
Oh, 5 or 6.
And I feel it's a broader question for this commission. You go to the MACC training and they say, don't do that.
But you have erosion issues.
But I understand, but there are ways to deal with the erosion issues.
But this is a tough one, because it's always when you're looking for after-the-fact file.
Yeah, exactly. So what I heard is Maureen's going to get some calculations from the engineer, from Mark, for the commission for the water on the driveway. And we have a question about this wall, so if we can get clarification on that.
And I just had a couple comments.
Yeah.
So,
Anything else before we go to David?
yeah, my
Trying to remember.
concern, like I said, was all the water coming down the driveway, it all pitches towards the house. Then you've got a 2-car garage with a large area of asphalt in front of the garage. How we're gonna pitch that, or how you're gonna take care of the water that comes down the driveway, comes in that area, is it gonna go off to the right? Is it gonna go into a drain of some sorts? So you'll have to decide, based on your calculations, the best way to deal with that water. But there's a lot of water coming down there. And the other thing that I was concerned with, just the sequencing working from the back of the house, rip all the pavers up, put the loom down, seed it, stabilize those areas before we get out front and start digging the foundation and doing all that work, because it's gonna be a real mess if you rip up the pavers, dig the foundation, and you're gonna do all the landscaping at the end. It's gonna be an issue. There's too much area. So sequencing and getting the pavers pulled up, get it, 75% back to where it should be, and then take on the addition and then the driveway in front of the house and the drainage is almost separate from getting it back to where it should be. Does that make sense?
Okay, that makes sense. I can provide the commission with a construction sequence or put it on the plan.
Right.
Either or. And then it's clearly stated, so there's no confusion.
I'd say put it on the plan.
well, yes, and again, a standard condition is that I meet with the contractor prior to the start of construction. One of the things to talk about is the construction sequence, so.
But on a job like this, they're gonna wanna do it in one shot at the end, where I think on
Right.
this particular project, it's two different
Right.
Thanks.
So I think doing it before they do anything on site,
Get it
have
stabilized.
that meeting
Yep.
Right.
and make sure the contractor understands and is agreeable.
Treat the addition as a separate from the restoration of the area after the pavers are pulled up. That's,
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
yeah. And
But
then
I
if you
assume-
want to bring some photos of the walls, we can make the determination whether those walls should stay or go.
Okay.
So I just had a couple comments and a question. So and I think this has already been clarified. So where it says remove pavement and remove pavers, that's all going to be replaced with lawn.
That's correct.
Okay. A second thing is, Maureen, I'm fine with whatever proposal you make for the species for the shrubs.
Okay.
But what is, when it says allow area to neutralize, what does that mean?
That is a typo. It's supposed to say naturalize.
Oh.
I will have that fixed.
So that's all I had.
Okay, all right. So I think we have some good actions for the next meeting, but it sounds like we need to continue this.
Yes.
Maureen, does it sound reasonable to have you come back at the next meeting in 2 weeks?
Yes, that would be great. Thank you.
So just remember that David we like to get David, the information to him by next Wednesday, so that's a week from tomorrow.
Yes.
Okay.
It's not a long window, it's a short window.
So
Just-
Carl, I
just
move that we
reminder.
continue this hearing until our next meeting on March 25.
Motion from Chris, second from Mark, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you very much, Maureen.
Thank you. Have a
Maureen.
good night.
Okay, we continue that to the next meeting, and so we are back to our regularly scheduled program. Where were we? Dave Sperry.
Right. You probably remember from previous land management reports that the town did a open space and recreation plan, which was hosted by this committee. And that process completed at the end of the year. I've come to talk a little bit about nature trails and accessibility on conservation land. In the past, we've done some things wrong, so we have an opportunity to correct things. So the reason why I did the paper is just to be able to have a point of reference for you to go back to, because we're going to be learning some things today. Okay? So the state requires us, you can go ahead and put it on the first page. Okay. For the OSRP, the state requires us to create a ADA self-evaluation plan. It means we need to go out and visit all the recreation areas owned by the town and the open space areas and evaluate them for ADA. We had 4 volunteers step up and help us out, all of them long-term veterans of COS. We did have a gentleman's agreement with Leader of COS not to post any of the findings on social media while this is going on. That's why you didn't see much along those lines. I handed you a copy of a big table. That's actually what we sent the state for just the cranberry bog. There are 174 valuation points in the standard thing, but for us, we're really interested in about 47 of them. So it really shrinks things down. We don't have a lot of swimming pools and other things like that we have to measure showers and all that, so we're lucky there. For the Conservation Commission thought process, what the state wants is basically ADA compliant stuff from the handicap parking spot to any of the amenities at the trailhead and to the trailhead. Once you get to the kiosk at the trailhead, and the kiosk should be accessible so you can read the signs, everything beyond that follows U.S. Forest Service rules. And there's a whole large document that we won't get into on that. I'll just pick little pieces of it. The rules are different once you get over that, because it's meant to be a nature trail. We did 36 town open spaces. And 11 of them were Conservation Commission ones. Go ahead on to the next page. Sorry about the deep wording, but this is actually meant for you to take home and put by your bedstand so you can study it. Or go to sleep at night. So in the U.S. Forest Service guidelines, which we'll call FS tag from 2013, Class 5 trails are basically your ADA spec trails. They're going to be decking or paved and whatnot. The Class 4 trails, which is what we're going to be talking about here, are considered highly developed. It relaxes some of the ADA specs. One of them is obstacles in the path. If you have a root or something in the trail, ADA requires it to be less than half an inch. The Forest Service rules say that it can be 2 inches before you have to remediate something on that. You can also have a 2-inch root, but if you have a 36-inch clear path around it, that's fine also. Okay, it's a nature trail. It's not meant to be purely a straight path. You're nature. Let's see, the other thing that we have to watch out for is slope like usual, but it's different than ADA. They have a very complex, about 10-page on how you do slope and cross slope and do resting areas and all that kind of fun stuff for a full-up accessible trail. And then there's specific signage that should be applied, and we'll have pictures of that momentarily. So the Class 4 trails over on the right is just right out of their book. It's for families, casual walkers, some wheelchair users. Not everybody's going to be able to get through it. And it's okay to have moderately challenging for elderly people using the trails, okay? And you can design your trails to be various levels of difficulty for the exercise experience.
So strictly speaking, Class 4 is not considered to be compliant, ADA.
There is no such thing as an ADA compliant trail,
Okay.
okay? Because ADA rules don't apply
I
to
see.
trails, okay? Once you're past that trailhead and into a natural area, the different set of rules apply.
But Class 5 is the same as ADA.
Right, if you want to go that far. You can,
Okay.
So the
Okay.
rail trail would be like that, right?
Correct.
Am I right? Okay.
right. The rail trail's classified a little bit differently because that's mixed use. But for what we're going to concern here, the trails, you can go all the way up from a natural thing to a mildly paved road if you want to, or walkway in there. It all costs money, and that's what it's going to come down to in the end. Then I just put a paragraph for your reference of what Mass Trail Grants wants if we want to go out for a grant to do work. The big takeaway from the Mass Grant people is that they're interested in connectivity. Does your accessible path lead from one accessible area to another accessible area and connect two things that are important? And then the other thing is, what is the person that's using the trail going to see? Okay, there has to be something interesting for the person that's actually using the trail to spend the time going out there. You just don't dump them into the middle of a swamp. It needs to be kind of a wildlife observation area or something.
Well, yeah, because that's kind of subjective. I mean, some
That-
people love looking at swamps.
Right, okay, and we've got plenty of opportunities for that around here.
I'm sorry, the grant opportunities that you're referring to,
Yep.
the connectivity, is it connectivity, as you mentioned, within a given parcel, like from a pond to a lookout? Or do they emphasize connectivity between separate conservation parcels that maybe are not adjacent?
They like the adjacent more, okay?
Sure.
But they're also interested in making sure that, yeah, you can connect things internally.
You can see the cool stuff.
Right.
So I would think that a connection, say, to the rail trail would be a huge priority.
Yes.
Or a very high-ranking
Okay.
project.
Even to a sidewalk is high ranking, okay? Because now somebody can use the accessible sidewalk to get into the nature area. Okay, next page, I'm going to give you some examples. So, in the top left, that's an actual sign from one of the trustees of reservations trails. They call it universal access. Audubon has a similar set of rules, which they call all persons trail. And the center picture is actually a picture of one of those trails. The trail is not ADA compliant, but on the sign that you see there on the left, they say where it's not compliant. So people can see, oh, do I want to do this trail? Okay, it's got some steep sections. They know. Okay, and they can decide whether or not to do it. It's got a little excess cross slope. Okay, they know it, they can go. So that's kind of important. That's something we've never thought of before. So as we venture down this road, we have to think along those lines. Over on the right is what they consider an accessible information kiosk. It has to have the packed gravel around the bottom, so a person in a wheelchair, that has to be up to ADA spec, so that's the edge of your trailhead. Anything that a person has to touch, they have to do it within the wheelchair 2 feet to 4 foot range. So you can see that sign basically fits that. And there's like 2 pages dedicated to that in the specifications.
So, but, I mean, someone in a wheelchair would kind of have to go like this to read the top of the sign.
That young man is straining his neck.
Yeah.
Yep. But that's, the spec is this ceiling here has to be a minimum height. Okay,
Minimum
so
height.
don't bang your head. Okay.
Oh.
So that's the combination of things that we have to worry about. I don't know of any kiosks that we have in town that actually meet this at this point. But we also have a bunch of kiosks that are due for replacement.
Yep.
So this is going to be, as you go,
Don't jump on.
we'll bring things up.
So can I ask a question?
Sure.
Dave, you mentioned the trailhead, things changed at the trailhead as far as handicap,
Yep.
right? So should the kiosks, when we're redoing some of the ones we have, putting new ones into the handicap, should they be at the trailhead as opposed to, I know some of them are near the parking area as opposed to the trailhead, like Oak Hill, the parking areas are quite a ways away from where the trails really
Almost a
start.
quarter of a mile.
Yeah. So should the kiosk actually be at the trailhead?
You can declare the trailhead basically anywhere you really want to say.
But to be
Typically,
consistent? I mean, we're trying to be consistent. If we
Trying to
go
be
with this route.
consistent. The Forest Service usually says the trailhead is where you leave the parking lot. Okay, so for Oak Hill,
Oak Hill's pretty unusual.
Right,
right, you park, there's the kiosk, okay?
right.
So it's actually reasonably good.
Yeah, except then you walk down the DPW driveway and
And you go for a
past
ride,
the,
yes.
past the solar field.
Yeah.
And then you get to the bridge, which in my mind, that's where you start the trail.
Right.
Right, but the bridge is not compliant because it's too steep.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
So we'll,
Yeah, I'm just,
Yes.
I'm just saying if in the future we start putting more kiosks up or replacing some of the ones we have, should we should keep it in mind where the placement of them,
Well-
maybe,
when we do the inspections, and you're gonna, or the evaluation, the
Yep.
ADA self-evaluations, part of the training is you start at where the parking spot is, because you have to take all the measurements of the parking spot. And then you have to verify that there's an accessible path from that parking spot to the kiosk. Okay? And any other amenities that are there that would be visited, like a porta potty, things like that. So if you put the kiosk far away, you have to do the path that much further.
Right. Okay.
But that's left up to the designers.
Yep, okay.
And how you want to implement it. Any other questions on the design stuff here?
Out of the 11 reservations, how much of this do you want this to carry through? In all of them? I'm getting lost on where we're gonna start.
Well, we're going to talk about that in a little bit.
Okay.
You're a good lead-in. Okay?
I wanna know where Disneyland stops and trails begin.
And that's really going to be up to you and the volunteer base, okay, and where money is. Really want to go after low-hanging fruit first. Okay. So go ahead and do the next page, Dave. So here's one of our typical trailheads. I've used this slide a few times. We don't have a clear path around the bottom of the kiosk. And we're not doing a good job of keeping the area clear for people to actually see things on that. And for years, we've been placing rocks at the trailhead to prevent ATVs. They also prevent wheelchairs. So we need to be able to get 36 inches of clear path between the rocks, or more. Okay. So if we were just to move the rocks and clean the soil around there a little bit, we'd gain another 500 feet of accessible trail because it's already paved and nice and flat all the way to the back parking lot there. That's a relative freebie with one little tractor move. So there are going to be little things like that that we can do. Okay, questions on this kind of trailhead? Okay, go on to the next page. So if we continue down the road in Russell Mill, the state didn't require this, but we had people that went a little extra to say, okay, how far can we take this relatively easily? And you can see that there are some scenic spots on the left, which would be points of interest to go to. Nice flat areas you could put a picnic table on. But there's some obstacles in there. There are areas with small roots. Probably some of them would have to be remediated. Some wouldn't. We've got an area with a cross slope. That would take more investigation to see if we wanted to do something there. And then we do have an area further down with some 5-inch roots. Again, it would be up to, if you go forward, you'd have to actually go through and do a full plan. This is just a quickie. How viable is this spot? Any questions on this example? We'll do a few more. Okay, cranberry bog. So this one's got lots of low-hanging fruit also. We've basically got the rock that needs to be moved over a couple inches. And then a large portion of the path is almost where we need to be. There are some little rocks that are sticking up more than 2 inches, but there's a path to get around them, so they don't really need to be remediated. There are some low spots that need to be filled in. There's some volunteers in town that know how to fill in those spots and pack them down. We just need to learn how to pack a little better and get the materials and get trained up on that a little better. Going down to Dam 1, there is a hill that exceeds the ADA requirements. It's got some roots on it. We'd actually have to go in there and measure it to see if we have to do something. might not have to. Could be that we do a little side trail to that. Go on to the next.
So how would you deal with the roots? Just cover them up?
You can cover them up. If they're minor, you can cut them if you need to. The big thing is just to find that 36-inch path.
Yeah, so then it becomes, there's a possibility of a trade-off of a tree health versus accessibility.
Right.
But if it's, yeah, so we have to make those decisions.
That's where the detailed design comes in.
Yeah.
Okay. This is just the first pass at what we can do. So if you, the next page is the same thing on a map. It's really low-hanging fruit to do the first part of the cranberry bog out to the hill for the dam. And there's also a nice little mound that you can put a picnic table and make it an observation spot. And if you were to take the trail around that observation spot, you'd avoid the hill with roots. Okay, that could be an Eagle Scout project. The big thing is we have to dice it up and say, okay, we can have scouts do this, we can have volunteers do this, we can have the DPW help out on those types of things. Any questions on the cranberry bog?
To get the high wildlife observation experiential,
Yep.
very good for that, yeah.
Okay. Red Wing. For that one, it's a nice open place for photography, but we have our typical trailhead problems, never thought of ADA-wise. There's a hill going down, a little too steep, and it's grass. They don't want the slippery grass for accessibility reasons, so we need to put some kind of stone dust in there. Probably can't go straight, it'd be too steep. So you need to come up with a design to say, okay, let's go this way and into the garden, and okay. It takes more thought to actually doing it. If you go on to the next page, and we talk about connectivity on that, the backside does hook up to the rail trail. So there is an accessible entrance there. But that's going to take a fair amount of labor to even it out enough
Yeah.
to accept a powered mobility device or a wheelchair. It
Would be good, though.
it'd probably be good, and you need some advocates for it, and you'd have to actually come up with a design saying, yeah, we're going to take it this way and see what the actual slopes are. One of the things with the ADA evaluation from the state, we're not really supposed to recommend changes or design changes. We're just saying, this doesn't meet that, this does meet that. We're going a little bit beyond what the state required, more into the transition plans, but throwing thoughts out there to get other people started in thinking about this. Okay, last slide. There's much rejoicing. Southwell Nature Trail. This is not conservation property, but it's an interesting one. Because it was originally designed and built as an accessible trail back in 1999. They spent almost $250,000 in today's money, putting in 1,000 feet of trail on the nature trail side, another 3,000 feet of trail around the fields and around the river. And when we did our inspection of it, we never realized that they were originally ADA trails. We just recently found that out earlier last week.
How did you find that out?
Archaeology.
Archaeology.
Town website archaeology.
Wow.
Okay. There's a decrepit sign on the back of the park that says Southwell Park. Okay, it's fallen to pieces. Well, you do Southwell Park on the town website, and up pops the vinyl square action plan for 2014, and a huge description of it was right in there.
Wow.
Leading to the Friends of Southwell Park that did the fundraising for it, and the actual financial numbers that were in there. Then, of course, we had to ask the knower of all knowledge, Facebook. And we had a lot of people chime in and say, oh yeah, it was all built out, it was really nice. Okay, but the invasives have come in, and maintenance is a problem. So when you're thinking of doing an access, you want to make sure that it's easy to maintain. And what the trustees of reservations have done, and I think Audubon's doing a similar thing, is when they make a trail, they make it wide enough so they can take a mower down the left and right side of it, just to keep the invasives chopped down easily, instead of having to go in there by hand every few months with a volunteer crew to chop things out. So when you design these things, you do need to think about recurring maintenance.
So I guess that's the lesson, the bottom sentence is the lesson to be learned.
Right. Now, the trail is actually not that bad a shape, so probably a bunch of volunteers could go back in there and in a couple weekends make it accessible again, okay, with a little bit of help of material from DPW.
So we do have a confirmed support from Christine
Right.
and DPW to help. Traded some emails with her, so.
Right. Another thing that, when I was doing the observation here, there was a class being held out in the space, and they had taken their shorty bus, because they could get in there and park, and it was relatively quiet, and they could lead the kids to the table there, and they could be drawing what they were seeing and describing what's going on in nature. And the teachers didn't know what poison ivy looked like. Okay, and they asked me to point some out for them. Okay, so they'd really like some kind of information sign for basic stuff that we take for granted.
Yeah.
I've also seen this in scouts. One of the first things you do with a brand new scout is point them to, that's poison ivy. Okay,
Leaves
and
of 3, leave it be.
Right, and you let them go around and find it and point it to you and all that. So if you're going to go for the education point of view, sometimes some of the real simple things, okay, is very powerful. Did I miss anything else out here? I think we're good. Questions on this?
I was just going to make a comment. Probably a lot of us have walked that trail on the Merrimack. That's an awesome place. If I were needing an ADA trail, isn't that like check off all the boxes? You've got beautiful water and nice view, and right?
And it did 25 years ago.
Bingo.
Okay. We lost track of it. It got away from us. That's one of the things with the capital plan coming up. They've earmarked some money for doing ADA, but that has to be spread among all the open spaces. There's stuff that needs to be done at Hart Pond.
Yep.
And we got to figure out what's the best for our community for
Right. And there's
using
a big number in the upcoming town meeting warrant, isn't there, or in the budget for DPW support of ADA compliance, or is that more the playgrounds?
That can include playground, but it's really mostly earmarked for open space. There are some areas in town, recreation-wise, like Highland Field, that is very non-compliant ADA-wise, and that really needs to be addressed.
Yeah, so not to beat this to death, but I know Steve Callahan, I think, has been doing a lot of, through DPW, a lot of ADA stuff at the playgrounds. Who's leading the decision-making on the open space? Is it us? Do you have a communication with DPW where you're setting priorities? How's that working?
We're in a vacuum at this point.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just threw this together for Carl, because
Yeah.
I had the stuff
Got it.
from there. And there's educational stuff that needs to be walked into this.
We know there's a lot of low-hanging fruit here. And
That's kind of my
yeah.
question, Carl. Kind of, what do you
Yeah.
think the next steps are for the commission? And
Yeah.
for
So,
Dave?
I guess for us, we need to be endorsing this, and, David, one of the things we didn't talk about yet, David, but you've sent out notes to a lot of the scouting leaders in town saying, we have a lot of opportunity for projects, and so these kinds of projects that Dave's identified, I mean, what that assessment did for all the conservation properties, but even all of the open space properties, is identified a lot of very low-hanging fruit projects that DPW can do, volunteers can do, organizations like Scouts can do, if a church comes up, so, COS can do this, everybody can do some of these projects, because there's a pretty well-documented set of opportunities here.
Great.
Right, there's 300-plus pages worth of the report. It's in the state mandated format like I handed you.
We can tweak that to be more user-friendly.
We can tweak that.
Easily.
We give the state what they want so we can get grant money, and it's a baseline. Okay, it's not 100%, but it's good enough for getting us going.
And where we support, or we sponsor the open space and rec plan, that's why I wanted to talk about like Southwell beyond just the conservation sites. We're certainly our first interest is the 11 conservation sites, but, the open space and rec plan is for everything in town. And so that's why I think it's important that we support all of that. So between, Dave and I have had some conversations about this. There's a lot of people interested in helping here, I think. I think we can make a lot of progress. I haven't got to the point where I think we need to formally have a committee or subcommittee on this yet, but we might, that might be the right thing to do at some point.
It needs to be coordinated so that it's not done piecemeal. It's got to be, there needs to be direction to how you do it.
Right,
You
and
start and.
we don't have a clear direction yet. We have the findings, some good ideas. We need public support to what the public wants. We have opportunity.
Good job.
So
Dave, thanks for
This
doing all
is-
that. That's
Oh, you're welcome.
very good.
Dave does great research and
Yeah.
digs down into the details, and
And I want to thank Beth
Yeah.
for helping me out, doing a number of evaluations.
yeah.
We found
Beth.
that a different set of eyes would find different things.
Yep.
And everybody that was involved in doing the surveys found it very beneficial because they got to go to parts in town that they'd never been to. And look at things that they've never had to look for before.
Even places you've been many times, and you suddenly look at it differently, too.
Right.
The Disability Commission was involved as well.
Right, they provided us the initial training.
Yep.
And while we were doing all this data collection, we had a Google Drive out there that Commission on Disabilities had full access to and could see the data coming in. As all of us on the committee, or not on the committee, could enter it.
I think as a Conservation Commission, now that we've got a lot of our big projects behind us, this is the stuff we should be kind of doing more of and let the regulatory stuff kind of come and go as it does.
We have to do the regulatory, but yes.
No, I know,
yeah, yeah.
but we spend all our time on that now,
Right.
and very little time on this stuff.
I agree.
And I think it should be the other way around.
You didn't hear about the permit moratorium? There's a 12-month permit moratorium.
Yeah, the planning board's singing it already, so.
The big thing here is just the initial education.
Yep.
Yeah, and if I could just add, my thanks. I was on the Open Space Committee with you, and I watched everybody and your team do an incredible amount of work. It's a lot more than what is summarized here. So
No,
thank you for that.
And the team thanks
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, appreciate it, Dave. So you'll start to see more. We have to figure out exactly how to mobilize going forward. I agree with you, Bill, that more deliberate approach, how we do it, but there's a lot here, and so how we.
I mean, we might want to do a quarterly, every quarter, do a review, put this prominently on our agenda and look at it every quarter.
Yeah, there's, I mean, the 3 or 4 that Dave showed, those people could almost start working tomorrow, I mean, the DPW, if we say, go move these rocks, put some blue curving here and here, I think Cranberry Bog, we know exactly where we want it. Some of this stuff's very, like, shovel-ready kind of stuff. Not everything, but some of it is.
But in terms of pulling the trigger, you mentioned you've got some, I mean, you have the authority as our chairman, don't you? To work with a volunteer group that would like to do a project and just say,
Yeah,
make it so?
Or even the agent can,
Yeah.
I mean, we need to share some of this with David, so, I mean, he's seen a lot of it from
Right.
being in the committee, but the details,
Right.
if a scouting leader came to David and said, hey, we got some kids available this weekend, and, he'd probably say, let me get Dave Sperry, which is probably fine, hopefully scouting leaders give us a few weeks of notice, but we can probably come up with stuff fairly quickly, yeah. And I know Phil has a lot of stuff involved in there. He's very involved in that, and he has ideas and all that. So, we can make all this. We can make it work. We can make things happen. So, okay.
Nice.
Thanks.
Great job.
Good stuff. Really good stuff. Coolest update. Well, nothing much other than David and I are in discussions with Sudbury Valley on
I'm
some of
just
the
continuing to work on the due diligence.
Yep, the preliminary stuff, prior to really getting into the CR, trying to get all that stuff. So there is stuff happening. I've seen Sudbury Valley people twice or 3 times in a week, twice in a week, yeah.
Half the big tree fell down.
Oh, it
I
did?
saw that, yeah. That's the
The one on the right.
one they,
Oh,
yeah,
the big oak?
Yeah.
not the big oak.
No,
There's
no,
one up
it's,
on the hill on
up
the
on the
right.
hill.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's one that the Friends of Coolest were really working hard to preserve
Yeah.
and take the invasives down. And I think it was the last windstorm, I'm gonna guess.
Right.
Did a number on it. That's too
Yeah,
bad.
yeah.
because
Were
they
they-
worked hard on it.
Were they thinking it was weakened by bittersweet?
It was all
or is-
rotted.
Yeah.
Oh, it was old
Yeah, it
anyway.
was,
Or did the bittersweet kill it, I guess, is the
that looks pretty
operating
dead.
theory.
If you look at it, it's been dead for a while.
Yeah, it's partially fallen down, I think, right? Some
No,
of it's, the whole
half of it
thing?
fell down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
The rest of the trees there.
Yeah, that's what I meant, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to mention, a couple things on land management. So, David and I talked briefly, in fact, Dave Sperry and I were out there at Crooked Spring. There's a couple of sections of trail that have been perennially underwater, and they're 150 to 200 feet, that if you walk that site, I'm sure you're there, Chris.
Yeah.
You know right where I'm talking, you
I
leave
know
the
what you're
parking
talking
lot,
about.
and right, as soon as you leave the parking lot, within about 50 feet,
You're underwater.
you're in the water in the springtime, winter, spring, whatever.
Yeah.
And then around the other side of the pond, it's the same thing, right on the pond, it goes right up to the pond. And so we marked out a couple of ways to reroute the trail off the water, and we're gonna talk through this. David's gonna talk to the, who are you gonna talk to about trying to figure out if we're gonna do an RDA or not on this?
I was going to consult the bylaw.
But, yeah,
I know that there's an exemption for trails in the WPA.
okay.
And in the bylaw, though, I think it's just for private trails, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense,
Yeah.
but I'm going to go back and take another look at it.
But so if you happen to get to Crooked Spring, you'll see, because we taped it off with some little ribbon tapes that'll just show where the trail would reroute, and it's pretty, actually, as of Sunday, it's still very slippery, because Steve Mayotts fell twice while we were there, and so it's still, I don't know, maybe today was pretty nice, so maybe it'll be better, but it's an opportunity to make an improvement there, get away from it doesn't mean you can't walk down to the water and look at the water, but it just means the trail doesn't go there. It just means that it's going to get it out of the water. So we'll take a look at that. That might be before us coming up. And the other thing is that the Thanksgiving group that's doing the pollinator garden, they are really getting motivated, and there are some Norway maples that they want to take down. I think I mentioned this before in this meeting, and we're going to try and connect with Christine, the tree warden, and get there and see if we can figure out how to make that happen. And they have a whole replacement plan. We'll might even have them come to the next meeting to present that, because there's a replacement plan for that. And one of our neighbors is coming to the podium.
Hi, Dave Sperry, Chelmsford Land Conservation Trust. Happens to be in a butter to that garden there. We're not exactly sure where the property line is
Agreed.
for where the trees would be taken down and all that. We're very interested in possibly, in the future, improving that site
Okay,
to fix up the canoe area, or even possibly long-term, put some kind of observation deck out onto the water that would be accessible. But that's a year or two away at least.
yep,
But finding out where the property lines there would be very, very helpful for us.
yeah. So one of the other abutters, so the Land Trust, the Conservation Commission, and I forget her last name, Robin, next door, she owns the land right next door. So she's the one that's all over getting rid of these Norway maples. So we're all, I think, in agreement with that kind of a thing, but
Yep.
we would definitely want to have you, the Land Trust, participate in that as well, because we can make it everybody on the same page kind of a situation.
It's a really nice place. You see a lot of kids learning about the water there.
Yep.
To make it a nice learning place.
Carl and Dave, the reason for the Norway maple tree removal?
Well, because they keep starting to infiltrate into Thanksgiving Forest, and they're spreading all over there. And in fact, across that park area, if you want to call it a park area with the picnic table and all that, the trees we're talking about are on the left looking at the water. But if you look to the right, there's like a little invasive grove that
Right,
I'm
I've
pretty
seen it.
sure a bunch of them are saplings.
Yep.
And it's just, let's get rid of them. And she's come up with a plan that includes replacing them and some forsythia as well with some other stuff that would go in there. And we may come up with some money. We'll talk
Right,
about that.
some
maybe at the next
native-like
meeting.
stuff?
Yep.
Yeah, and might be a little bit too much of a tangent, but wasn't Thanksgiving Forest the location of a very old Conservation Commission project to deal with the fact that the trees are all the same age and that's not good for forest health, and there was a clearing made?
I've
Yes.
heard that story. I don't know the history of that, but I
And-
think there was some kind of a forestry plan.
Yeah, and what I'd like to just mention, the reason I brought that up is, it's been on my action list, I haven't done it, but the state DCR, regional foresters supposedly will come and consult with us on some of these forest management things one could consider to improve the health of a forest and those fringe areas that you're talking about, and all that land that the trust owns, right, on the Mill Pond, I think, right, is all connected.
Right.
That's what I'm saying, it's all, and then, of course, it's connected to Carlisle, to Great Brook Park, and then it's connected to the Cranberry Bog. So it's like an awesome,
It's a
connected
very,
to some awesome land.
it's a very important wildlife corridor.
Thank you.
Okay. Agents report, David?
I don't have anything else.
Anything else? Okay. Did you have any event requests? You had
Oh,
something from
yes,
the
that's,
bike?
that's right.
What was
So, thank you, Carl. So I approved a couple of event requests from yet another mountain biking club. Let me just check who that was quickly.
This was for Russell Mill.
Yeah. So that was Dynamic Cycling Adventures is that biking club. So that was for June 28th and 29th and October 18th and 19th.
This is a Vermont bicycling group, judging from the address.
Yes, yes.
Interesting.
So
Why do they want to come here?
I guess they've heard a lot about it. They've heard, from NEMBA, New England Mountain Biking,
But
and
we've got a really good reputation out
yeah,
there.
evidently that's the case. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a ways away to come from right Eastburg, Vermont.
So, one thing to consider, if they're a
That's up
business, then I know from talking to Christina, we need to get a copy of their insurance.
And they say we have that already. So they must have done another event last year. I just didn't remember that name. Let
And
me
then
check.
I just also asked, when we talked about this, I asked if you would let the number guys, our local number guys, know about it, just so that they're aware.
Carl, who are the Friends of Chelmsford Conservation Reservation,
I don't know what that is.
which is on this form at the bottom? Or is that just an old?
Let me
Very
go back
bottom.
to that. Well, this is actually not.
Oh,
the
those
most-
are donations.
That's not the most.
No, it says return to Chelmsford Conservation, the Friends of Chelmsford Conservation Commission.
That should be
Reservations.
that should be changed.
Oh, is that some
mean,
old
It's
entity
like a
that doesn't
typo.
exist?
I think so, but they can donate directly to the commission in any case, which I generally try to remember to tell them. Don't know if I did in this case or not. But,
Okay,
but still plenty
Okay,
of time.
thanks.
okay. So you said two, but it's the same group for two different nights?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
the spring and the fall. Okay, great. And that's all I have. We don't have any meeting minutes, right, Miss Vivian? No? Okay. And our next meeting is March 25th, 2 weeks from tonight, and we will start early at 6:30 with the Kleinfelter watershed study results.
Yes, and I just remembered as well, because Peter reminded me about the DCR State Forester. I think he might be there to talk about the trees he wants to clear up on Robin Hill Road.
That's
At our next
DCR, not?
meeting.
DCR, yes, that's
It's their fire watch.
yeah, that's right. Yes, so I haven't gotten a confirmation from him on that yet, but that's a possibility.
Okay.
Is that but that's a DCR communications or fire watch person, right? Not the forest.
Fire watch, right? Yes, he's not the DCR service
See
forester.
some horse trading.
Some horse trading.
Give us a forest management plan and we'll let them cut a few trees.
Wheel and deal.
Why not?
They cut trees at Thanksgiving for us, right? Chris?
Yeah,
Yeah, they made an open spot. It's a
Yeah,
ecology thing.
Any idea how far back that was?
15, 16 years ago, maybe?
Yeah. Yeah, at least.
And do we know if it worked? Because the idea is, more biodiversity, but
I think it might have,
Did it
I
work?
think it improved things, to be honest.
how do we know though, right?
But that's just, I think it did improve things. Because we had, it's the same age, the same species, everything was
Right.
like mono species.
Well, that's it,
so I
right.
think-
That's the problem with a lot of our land, like the trees were either planted or they just sprung up and they're all the same age and that's bad and
Yeah.
that's,
Crooked Springs like that.
right?
Crooked
The pine
Springs
trees
has
on
the
the
same
hill.
problem with those
yeah.
pines, they're
Yeah.
all coming down.
Yeah.
I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn?
Chris, second, Mark, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Chelmsford Telemedia. Thank you.